Hey everyone, this is Destro, and welcome back to Realm of the Lich King. Today I'm doing a quick video painting up a Leagues of Votann space dwarf, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how I choose my color schemes. Now, I do want to start by saying that what works for me might not work for everybody, but fortunately there are some alternatives. My friend Brent over at Goobertown Hobbies has an excellent video about how to choose a color scheme by painting lots of test models, and my friend Ali has a video about how to use image software to test color schemes without doing any painting at all. So, links for those will be down in the description, and once you've finished here, go check them out. Now, my style is pretty emergent. I do very little testing typically, but there are still a few things that I want to do before I start putting paint on the model, taking the brush up. And the first thing is, of course, to prime appropriately. Anything that is going to be entirely light colors gets light gray primer, and dark gray is for everything else. Zenithals are nice for doing videos and testing and shapes and things, but I don't usually bother with them, and they're not strictly necessary, so don't worry too much about it if you don't want to do that. Next thing to do is to find some inspiration if you're short on ideas or you have a specific theme in mind, and in this case I did. My theme is steampunk, and so I looked at video games, concept art, things like that. Basically just go to Google, do a Google image search for your term, and scroll down the first couple pages. With steampunk, there's white, brass, and lots of brown, predominantly neutral colors, and predominantly warm tones from most of the images I was looking at. So that's what I'll be using. Now that you've got your inspiration, it's time to pick up the brush and just start painting. I like to do either the largest areas first, or the messiest steps first. Dry brushing and airbrushing are messy, so do those first. Work outwards, not inwards. If there's an area that's going to be hard to get to later, without getting paint on something else, do that first. But wait, hold on, Destro. You haven't explained how to pick what colors you start with. Well, in that case, it's going to come down to contrast. The concept, not the paints from Games Workshop. Contrast is really important on miniatures, more so than realism. Punching up contrast is going to be more striking than painting something exactly how it would appear in real life on such a small scale. Now, there's a few different ways you can create contrast. You can use contrasting colors, out of the color wheel. You can use color temperature, another part of color theory, and you can use light colors and dark colors. Black and white contrast pretty strongly, so that's a fairly simple one, and that's the one you're usually going to end up using when you're doing your highlights. The base color is going to be a lot darker than the color you highlight up to, but you want to make sure that you leave enough of that base color showing in the shadows for the contrast to actually work. That's something that took me quite a while to learn. In this case, because the miniature and the steampunk theme that I've chosen to go for is predominantly warm colors and predominantly neutral colors, light versus dark is what I'm going to have to go with. So I decided to do the armor in off-white and the rest of the miniature in a sort of dark brown leather and brass. I feel those will contrast pretty well with each other. The final thing to think about when you're painting is actually just a matter of speed. How fast do you want to get the miniature done? How much effort do you want to put into it? For something like a character or a centerpiece, it's definitely worth putting in the extra time. But for something like this guy, which is a little infantry who's going to be one guy in a unit of probably 10 or more, not so important. I'd like to get this guy done as quickly as I can, establish something that's striking without requiring a huge amount of time or effort to achieve. That means that in this case I've elected to go with simple techniques, base coat, do a wash/contrast wash, and highlights afterwards. Building up a library of mental techniques like this is a big part of the journey to becoming a better painter. But it takes time and practice, and I know I said I typically don't do a lot of testing, but I do have a test werewolf. This is a really cheap miniature that I had left over as part of a pack of 2, and it's got a few interesting surfaces on it, so I just use it to test new techniques that I think will work, but I'm not really sure. And with that is actually everything that I had to say. Didn't take long at all to go over all of that, quite a bit shorter than I thought it would be, but, well, painting this guy took a lot less time than I thought it might too. I finished this miniature in, maybe a little bit over 1 hour of solid painting, and you can see here, of course, that I haven't done the base, but I have plans to do a couple of test bases, because that's something that I really, really want to get right, and I don't actually have all the materials I'm going to need on hand. So, we'll have a video on bases in the future. But until then, I've been Destro, you've been great, and I'll see you next time.